Krishna just condemned all those reasons which Arjuna was giving, calling them as coming from the bodily conception of life. So Arjuna was giving all these reasons because he does not want to kill his own kinsman. That's the main reason. All the other reasons are all external. The main reason what he wants to put forward is he doesn't want to fight because he does not want to kill the respectable members. Krishna questions in the second chapter, at the beginning, after hearing all Arjuna's lamentation, that women will become polluted, there will be unwanted children, there won't be any varnashrama followed in the society, there will be degradation everywhere. Krishna says, where from this importance has come in you, that you are giving so many reasons to not fight. It is your duty to fight a war, but you are giving so many reasons not to fight a war. And Krishna uses the word, by behaving like this, you won't even go to the higher planetary systems. The aim of human life is advancement, elevation. Now we have got this human form of life, and from here we need to go to higher forms of life. So the behavior of Arjuna was not encouraged by Krishna. And Krishna says, these are all, you're behaving like a coward. You fought so many wars, but now you're behaving like a coward. But then Arjuna gives even more reasons that how can I kill my guru? How can I kill my grandfather? It was interesting that in one of the purports in the early chapters, when Arjuna gives these reasons that how can I kill my guru? How can I kill my grandfather? Especially he takes names of Bhishma and Drona. Prabhupada in the purport says that Arjuna especially took the sides of he especially mentioned about Bhishma Deva and Dronacharya because they are the teachers, they are the elder members of Guru family, but they are supporting these Kauravas, irreligion. They are supporting the side of irreligion. And Prabhupada says that it's because they took some financial help from the Kauravas, because the Kauravas are financially helping them. So even great personalities like Bhishma and Drona, they were obliged to take the side of Kauravas. And Prabhupada said this is not recommended, and that based on financial considerations they took the side of Kauravas, which is not very encouraged. Then Krishna says that we should understand self-realization. We should understand that we are not this body. When we think that we are not this body, then we will know what is our actual self-interest is. At the beginning, Arjuna was giving so many reasons that this. Prabhupada just in so many purports, Prabhupada mentions that Arjuna is giving all these reasons not to fight because he doesn't know what is his self-interest is. Under ignorance, he's thinking, he's identifying with the body and he's giving so many reasons. The society will be spoiled, this. But that is not actually his self-interest. One's self-interest actually lies in Krishna, in understanding Krishna. So, our self-interest is to understand Krishna, to realize Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj says that in the seventh canto of Bhagavad, Nate vidu swarthagatim hi Vishnu. People do not know what is actually their self-interest is, that their self-interest actually lies in Vishnu. And what are they doing by not knowing their self-interest? Durashayai bahirarthamanina. They are hankering after something which is not worthy of being hankered. Prabhupada calls it as hope against hope. People are hoping for something which is not worthy of hope. It's like a poor man, dreaming to purchase a Lamborghini. How can that's like hope against hope? He doesn't even have proper income to maintain his life, but he is dreaming to purchase a luxury car. That's like a hope against hope. So people, having forgotten their self-interest, they are in this cycle of, hope against hope. Durashaya, that's called Durashaya. Bahirarthamana, which is external. Shayaya Bahirarthamana. I can't remember the third and fourth lines, but anyway. So the main point is people don't know what is actually their self-interest is. When we forget our self-interest, then we give so many reasons for not doing something. But when we actually know our self-interest, then we will act for the satisfaction of Krishna. So, in the whole second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually he summarizes the whole Bhagavad Gita and just puts it in one chapter. Second chapter is also one of the longest chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna that's why Prabhupada translated the second chapter as contents of Gita summarized. The whole Gita is just summarized in the second chapter. If you understand the second chapter, you've almost understood the whole Bhagavad Gita. But even Arjuna got confused after hearing the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna had to further explain each and every aspect which he explained in the second chapter and the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So this third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is very interesting. It's named Karma Yoga. Karma means work. But it's very interesting because here the main subject matter in this third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is acting without attachment. It's very interesting. In the beginning of this chapter, Arjuna asks that what is more important? You advised me. Now he asks that is philosophical speculation more important or acting in Krishna consciousness is more important or to do devotional service is more important? And Krishna, throughout this whole chapter, he instructs how one should work in this material world. And the whole subject matter of this chapter is working for the sake of satisfying Krishna and not being attached to our work. To remain detached, at the same time, we need to carry out our own duties. In that way, we won't be bound to the reactions of our work. So, the very word karma means action, which gives certain reactions. So we have karma. So when we do certain work, the work we can classify it into either the work is good or the work is bad. Or it's a work, if we do, we get a good result or we get a bad result. When we do a work and we get a good result, we call that as punya. When we do a work which gets a bad result and for which we have to suffer, those activities are called papa, sinful activities. Last night I was reading Nectar of Devotion. It was very interesting actually. In the first chapter of Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami, he explains the 6 characteristics of devotional service. I'm saying all these things because we're all devotees here, so we can directly dive into these subject matters. Because if it was all new people, I wouldn't have gone through so much. I would have explained what is Krishna first of all. So because we are all devotees, we can go a bit deeper. So in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami explains in the first chapter the 6 characteristics of devotional service, which are Kleshagni, Shubhada, Moksha, Laghuta Kritsu Durlabha, Sambhranande Visheshatma, Shri Krishna Karshani Mani. So these are the 6 characteristics. So Nectar of Devotion is divided into 4 parts. First Rupa Goswami explains about what is devotional service. Then he explains about devotional service in practice, which we call it as sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti is like a stage where we don't have this natural tendency to do devotional service. We feel like we are forcing ourselves to do devotional service. Even chanting 16 rounds is like a burden, Waking up early in the morning is a burden. But we do it as a matter of duty. So that is sadhana bhakti because we haven't developed that higher consciousness, that love for Krishna. So we need to follow some rules and regulations. So Rupa Goswami, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Nectar of Devotion is divided into 4 parts. First he explains what is devotional service. We need to understand what devotional service is. Then he explains about sadhana bhakti, in the sense devotional service in practice. How we need to practice devotional service, which is sadhana bhakti. And then he explains about bhava bhakti, in the sense devotional service with feelings. And then at the end of the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami explains about prema bhakti, which is devotional service in love, pure love of Krishna. spontaneous devotional service, ragava. So bhakti, sadhana bhakti is divided into two parts, which is sadhana bhakti, vaidika sadhana bhakti and raga bhakti. So the raga bhakti part is described at the end of the, or from the middle of the Bhakti Rasamrita Nectar of Devotion. But in the beginning, first Rupa Goswami emphasizes that we need to actually understand what devotional service is and how we need to practice devotional service. We do not have a natural inclination to practice devotional service. Every day is like a test for us. Are we going to complete our 16 rounds? Are we going to engage in service? Are we going to do book reading? It's all a test for us. We are forcing ourselves. This is sadhana. This is practice. We are still practicing. So the 6 characteristics of devotional service, which Rupa Goswami describes in the Nectar of Devotion, first chapter, is the first characteristic is kleshagni, in the sense, pure devotional service destroys all the sinful reactions. That's the first characteristic of pure devotional service. And the second is shubhada. Devotional service is like the beginning of all auspiciousness. Everything auspicious will happen just by performing devotional service. And laghrutakrit is actually shubhada moksha laghrutakrit, in the sense that pure devotional service derives the conception of liberation. We say, people that, you need to get liberated, the aim of life is going back home, back to Godhead. But on the pure devotional platform, devotional devotees are just interested in just serving Krishna. They're not even interested in going back home, back to Godhead, because there's no difference for them. Even if they're in this material world, their duty is to serve Krishna. And even if they go to the spiritual world, their duty is to serve Krishna. So there is no difference, whether they are in the material world or they are in the spiritual world. So pure devotional service, for us moksha is we don't care about it. Actually, in the 4th chapter, I think, in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says that, he quotes Bilamangal Thakur, and he says that, Bilamangal Thakur says actually that, I'm not concerned about liberation. For me, liberation is just standing on my doorstep, just waiting when I'll give the opportunity to engage it in my service. Because I don't care for liberation. It's like, liberation wants to serve me. So that's amazing. And Rupa Goswami also quotes the Damodarashtakam, where in two stanzas, where Sankirtan Muni, it derives the conception of liberation. Namo Shri Graho Mesti Damodariha. I do not care for, I do not want any liberation. I just want to see you as a baby tied with rope to a wooden grinding water. I have no desire for even liberation. So pure devotion service derives even the conception of liberation. So devotional service is very rarely achieved. It's not very easy to achieve devotional service. Even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami says, Brahmande Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti. There are innumerable living entities all throughout the whole universe, but only those who are fortunate, they get the mercy of Krishna. Actually, it was interesting actually. I was hearing Prabhupada, actually it was yesterday morning. Prabhupada said that by the mercy of Krishna, if you are sincere, you get a spiritual master. And by the mercy of spiritual master, you can get Krishna. So by Krishna's mercy, you get spiritual master. And by the mercy of spiritual master, you get Krishna. Yasya prasada bhagavad prasado, yasya prasada navgati kutopi. By the mercy of spiritual master, one gets Krishna, and without the mercy of spiritual master, one does not get Krishna. So, pure devotion service is very rare actually. Unless we have done enough sukriti in our previous lives, we do not come in contact with devotees. So we can imagine how fortunate are these people on the street on the Northumberland street, We go out and do harinams and book distribution, Unless they have done enough sukriti in their previous lives, they don't get this opportunity to even come in contact with the devotee, what to speak of speaking to a devotee. And not just speaking to a devotee, but getting a book from a devotee. Or even not just getting a book from a devotee, but reading the book actually, and not just reading the book, but to actually apply the feelings and transform their whole lifetime. So unless one has done enough sukriti in his previous lives, he wouldn't have got this opportunity to even come in contact with the devotee. And even if they don't get a chance to come in contact with the devotee or speak to a devotee, when devotees go out and do a harinam, they're forced to hear the holy name. So even if they're reluctant, they can't just shut their ears and just walk past the street. They're forced to hear. In the first chapter, in this first canto, first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad, there's a beautiful verse. I like it very much actually. I remember it every day when I chant my rounds. Apana samsiddhim ghoram yad nama vivashogurana tata sadhyo vimuchyeta yad vibheti swayam bhayam. You know, the power of the holy name is such that even if one chants it unconsciously, it doesn't. He's not at all interested, but he's just chanting. Somehow the word Krishna has come out from his mouth. But the potency of the holy name is such that even such a person gets the potency to stop the repetition of birth and death. And he immediately becomes relieved of all the fear, even if he chants unconsciously. So what to speak of devotees who are trying to chant the holy name attentively to avoid offenses. So it's inconceivable. And we also know that how Krishna has invested all his potencies in just the holy name. And okay, we're coming back to the characteristics of devotional service. Devotional service is very rare and good. Sudurlabha Sandranande Visheshatma. Devotional service gives happiness to the living entities and to the devotees. One becomes more and more happy by being engaged in Krishna's service. This is completely opposite to materialistic work. Just chanting the holy names of Krishna, the more we chant, the happier we become. And this is not possible with other materialistic names. We often give examples like you can't just chant Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. Yeah. How long can you chant Coca-Cola? So, and we become more and more distressed. But the more we chant Hare Krishna, the more and more happier we become. In any form, either by japa or by kirtan, by sankirtan. So that's a symptom of devotional service. And the last the character of pure devotional service is it is the only means by which we can attract Krishna. So Krishna is not attracted by the speculations of the impersonalists. Krishna is not attracted by the severe austerities performed by the great yogis. But Krishna is only attracted by the devotional service. In fact, Krishna becomes obliged to be engaged in the service of his devotees because the devotees are engaged in his service. So these are the 6 characteristics and then of devotional service. And we also, actually the point I'm trying to make here is, here in this whole 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna emphasizes so much on working without attachment. And as devotees, that is the way we need to be in our everyday life. Okay? Devotional service consists of 2 things, which are Jnana and Vairagya. So, in the Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami, in the 2nd chapter, he says that what is the highest type of religious activity we do is Savai Pumsam Baro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adhokshate Ahaituk Yak Pradikata Yayatma Suprasivati. The highest devotional service or the highest dharma is to be engaged in the service of Krishna. And how that devotional service should be? It should be ahaituki and apradihata. Ahaituki means without any self-motive, without any self-interest. And apradihata means it should be uninterrupted. Okay. And when we do devotional service with this spirit, then what happens is there will be 2 things which will be generated ending in a devotee. That is explained in the next verse. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janetyashu Vairagya Gnanam Chet Ahaitukam. There will be two things. One becomes enlightened with the knowledge of Krishna, and the other thing is there will be a sense of vairagya, the sense detachment from the material world. So these things are naturally developed in a devotee. One need not cultivate. When they engage in devotional service, these things will automatically start developing in a devotee. But especially how devotees apply vairagya is again explained by Rupa Goswami in his Nectar of Devotion. So Rupa Goswami explains that we generally devotees, we also have our own things to do, especially when we speak of grihastha life, we need to work for the families and we need to look after them, and then at the same time we need to be Krishna conscious too. The main advantage of being a full-time devotee or a brahmachari in a temple is that you have 100% of your time to be engaged in Krishna service, but in family life it's very difficult. So for them, Rupa Goswami recommends Yukta Vairagya, in the sense, actually this is not just for the grihasthas, it's applied by everybody. All the varnas can apply the sense of Yukta Vairagya. And the first symptom of Yukta Vairagya is not being attached to what we are doing. Anasaktasya vishayam yatharham upayunjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. We are engaged in so many duties, and sometimes those duties are Krishna conscious and sometimes they are not. But the warning which Rupa Goswami gives is, don't be attached to it. Anasaktasya vishayam. But do it as much as they are required. Yatharham upayunjataha, so that you can maintain your body, you can maintain your dependence, you can maintain your belongings. But don't be attached to it. And nirbandha Krishna sambandhe, don't be bound to your activities, but engage in the service of Krishna. And these kind of, if you work with such a spirit, that application in itself is called Yukta Vairagya. In the sense, of course, you are materially engaged, of course, you're doing all your sorts of activities. Actually, in this purport, Prabhupada explains that, in the beginning itself, in the first sentence itself, Prabhupada says, two persons, one in Krishna consciousness and other in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there is a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. So a devotee and a non-devotee, they may be doing the same thing, they may be working the same job, they may be doing the same things, but they're not on the same platform. Prabhupada here uses, there's a gulf of difference. The platform on which a devotee does is different, or the perspective of a devotee is different from the perspective of a non-devotee. Devotees, they say they only work, but they are not attached. And that's the whole point of this chapter, that don't be attached to your work. We remain detached. But if you have to be attached to something, you need to be attached to Krishna. And that is the whole point of devotional service. We know the stages of devotional service. Adar Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivrittasya, Tata, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. So the first stage is we develop faith on Krishna, and then we associate with devotees, and then we execute devotional service, which is Bhajana Kriya. And then by Bhajana Kriya, what happens is Anartha Nivritti happens. All the impurities in the heart are destroyed. And when Anartha Nivritti happens, then Nishtha comes. Nishtha in the sense, we are fixed in our devotional service. And after Nishtha comes Ruchi. Ruchi means taste. We get taste in whatever devotional service we are doing. 16 rounds won't be a burden. Or getting out of the house to do Sankirtan won't be a burden, because there is taste. And then comes asakti, there comes attachment. So attachment is very important, that we should not be attached to material things, that we should be attached to Krishna. And once attachment to Krishna develops, then feelings start to manifest. So wherever there is attachment, there is a sense of feelings. If you are attached to our family, we start to feel for our family. The happiness and distress of our family are our own happiness, because we are attached to the family. So that's on a mundane platform, but on the spiritual platform, when we are attached to Krishna, then we develop feelings for Krishna. And then when there are feelings, then there is love for Krishna. That is Krishna Prema. That's the final state of Krishna consciousness. So, attachment. That's very important. So the perspective in which the devotee sees or works or acts or eats, so different. Prabhupada says that a devotee is also eating, a non-devotee is also eating. A devotee is also sleeping, a non-devotee is also sleeping. A devotee is also has a family life, a non-devotee also has family life, and a devotee is also defending, but a non-devotee is also defending. But the only difference which differentiates a devotee from a non-devotee is a devotee does everything for Krishna, but non-devotee does it for sense gratification. So if this purport, it mostly focuses on how the materialistic people, because they don't realize that whatever they are doing under the three modes of material nature, because they think that they are this body and they are the doers of everything. So they have been described as fools, because they do not know that they are not this body, but they are spirit self, and they are always under these three modes of material nature. However, as devotees, we know, at least theoretically, we may not be practically applying this philosophy in our life. Of course, we are trying our best, by sadhana bhakti, that we are not this body, and we are trying our best to overcome the three modes of material nature by being engaged in devotional service. Bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaidam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. By being engaged in devotional service, we are doing our best to overcome these three modes of material nature and come to the platform of Brahman. And once we are in the platform of Brahman, then what happens is Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nashochati Nakamshati Samah Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. When we are trying to come to the stage of Brahman, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, and the symptoms of that stage of Brahman are the symptoms of a person who has transcended the three modes of material nature is Prasannatma. He is satisfied. People are after satisfaction. They are not getting satisfied. But once we transcend these three modes of material nature and be situated on the Brahman platform, the first sentence is we are satisfied. And also that is the same thing even Sutta Goswami says in Bhagavatam. Ye atma suprasidati. When we engage in pure devotional service, we become completely satisfied. And Ashokchati Nakamshati. There is nothing for us to hanker for, and there is nothing for us to amen for. Samasarveshu Bhuteshu. We will be equiposed to all living entities, whether it be our friends or enemies. We see everyone equally. And Mad Bhaktim Labhate, we know that there is nothing superior than being engaged in Krishna service. So, there is nothing much. Actually, there is a lot to be explained, but that's my capacity of explaining this verse. I could have explained it more if I'm speaking to new audience, but here we are all devotees and we have been practicing devotional service for so long, so I try to present the same verse in a more way which is molded for devotees. So thank you very much, Hare Krishna. So as I said before, I should not be sitting here. You all should be sitting here, and you should all be sitting together. Oh yeah, we can be together too. So if there are any questions, you're welcome. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Brahmabhuta Prasannatma, what stage, as you mentioned, it happens there, but what is the stage the devotee can expect to happen throughout his journey?
It depends on the level of surrender of a devotee. Like Krishna says in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatha mam prapatyanti tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. The more we surrender to Krishna, Krishna reciprocates that way. So, I think in Australia, Prabhupada said, in one moment you can be Krishna conscious. So it just depends on our level of surrender.
Thank you.
Yes, Guru.
So does that mean a way to basically attain Krishna, to actually, basically get his love? Isn't it via the utmost desire, in a way?
Sorry, I could not follow you.
No, I said a way to get basically God's love, Krishna's love.
Yes.
Isn't it from our ways, the only thing that we can give back in a way is like absolute, like utmost desire?
Actually, we need to understand that it's not something which is something purchased or borrowed.
No, not like that. But like, how to explain? Prabal Ichha.
Yeah, desire. Yes.
It would start with an absolute desire initially at least.
Yes, that's called Shraddha. That's called faith. So devotional service starts with faith. It's a desire, an inquisitiveness, a curiosity. So that's called Shraddha. A small faith. Okay, you see devotees, you see the process, you see how devotees are happy. And then there's a small hope in you that, okay, if I follow this process, even I will be happy. Okay, if I follow these rules and regulations of devotional service, I'll be happy. So that's called a small faith. So that desire, and then that's how we can develop love for Krishna. Anything?
Yeah, but wouldn't that come as a let's say what I'm saying is once you get to know him, once the faith has risen within one person, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't basically it be a second step where intense desire to basically meet him too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that lead to whatever we are trying to do? Let's say the surrender. Isn't that the path to it? In a way. Because once you have that intense desire, wouldn't one go and actually surrender to Guru Maharaj, let's say?
Yeah.
To the Sadguru, and then later on. Something like that. Does that make sense?
Actually, I'm trying to understand your question, because the thing is, you're saying, okay, you have a desire, and then that desire will impel you to surrender.
Yeah. Would that be the case as well?
Of course. Yeah. If you have a desire, then you surrender. You put your faith, you invest your faith, then you surrender. And you follow the process. Yeah. Thank you.
But just to add to that, I'll ask a question. When that desire will come? Because he's talking about an intense desire to know Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned those stages where that will happen. That intense desire. Which stage?
Yeah, that comes with proper maturity in devotional service.
That makes sense.
Because right now we are in a stage where that maturity hasn't arisen in us, so we are practicing. We are practicing so that by mercy, that stage will automatically come. We need to be confident, but at the same time we need to be patient. So there are six stages, six things which are very favorable for devotional service. One thing is we need to be enthusiastic. First is that stage will come, but at the second time we need to be confident as well. But at the time, third thing is, at the same time we need to be patient as well, because not things turn up overnight. You need to be patient. So you need, until the stage has come, you need to, with proper rules and regulations, you need to continue devotional service, chanting your 16 rounds. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. I was just going to add to that if we don't have the desire, Prabhupada said we should desire to have the desire.
Yes.
Desire to have the desire. And it's said that lolium, this greed, everything's based on this. We need to have this greed. So that's one thing. But another thing is that, actually, I heard a really nice, in a lecture a couple of days ago, a devotee was asked, it may have been Kinchana Das Babaji Maharaj that answered. Anyway, it was a very advanced devotee. And they said, something along those lines, how do we get this desire? How do we get this love? And he answered it with one word, beg. Beg. But in order to be a beggar, then you have to realise that actually you don't really have anything. But I think the whole point of this verse is that because of the false ego, we think we're great. we think we have got everything under control. Even now I'm thinking, I've heard this verse so many times before. I know this verse, I know Bhagavad Gita. Why should I listen to this? But I don't really know it because I'm still falling into the same traps. So therefore we don't want to beg. Like someone who's a beggar, they've got nothing. They've got no other means of income. And we have to come to that point of realizing I've got nothing. And everything is, I'm completely dependent upon Krishna. And then in that stage we can beg. And so therefore one thing I think is, yes, we have the desire to have the desire. And where does that desire to have the desire come from? Well, everything ultimately boils down to association with devotees, doesn't it? Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sava Shastri Koilava Matra, Sadhu Sangha, Sava Siddhi Hoy. That from a moment's association with a pure devotee, then one can achieve all success. And so, yeah, we should desire to associate with devotees. And if we associate with devotees that have that desire, then we will also get that desire. Yeah, Sangat Sanjayate Kama. And actually, one last thing just in relation to that. Sorry, I was thinking, there's that expression, if you point a finger at someone and criticize them, there's 3 fingers pointing at you. So I heard one devotee one time, he was saying that when we criticize a devotee for certain qualities, it builds a bridge between you and that devotee, and all those bad qualities walk along the bridge to you, and you get those bad qualities. But if you glorify a devotee for good qualities, then you get their good qualities. But because of the false ego, we're always, we're critical, we're looking for faults. So we have to change the consciousness completely round and try and look for the good and glorify and want to associate with devotees that have that desire, and then we will also get that desire.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, any more questions or reflections or comments?
I'll see if there's anything.
Prasad, question time.
Okay, yeah. That's a false ego. Right. So, if that's the case, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai. Bhagavad ki jai.
His Grace Vasu Shresh Prabhu Ki.
Yeah.